Hey, welcome back everyone to Shrimp at the House Recall Part 7. This is the ninth page I'm working on, although it won't be page 9 when all is said and done. I think if you haven't been following along with this part and this is your first and or only video you've seen on it, then I will sort of rehash that I'm doing this part out of order. I'm working on sort of the scenes that must be included, and then going back and seeing of the scenes that I want to include, which will end up making it and which can just go by the wayside. So let me get this text out of the way. So I was trying to I think I was trying to do a recording of the previous page, and it just didn't work. I think I could already tell it was a disaster and like cut it off halfway through and just deleted those videos. That's not fair. That's not fair. Ah, shoot, I'm not caps locked here. That's not fair. That's not fair. If the only reason Dad wants to. Oh my god, this is gonna be one of those cases where, like, it's technically right, but that's not fair, Dad. Okay, yeah, okay, I see how we go. Ah, and this pops up when I'm on a roll. That's not fair. Dad only wants to say those things to clear his conscience. 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 That's how I remember it. He wants to really clear his conscience. Mm. He'll go right back to judging our lives. Hmm. So it's in this story, the one interesting thing for me is sort of how out of character Alex has gotten in here. It's like always before. Dad would have been annoying, but he's dad. It's his dad. I love him and support him anyway. And now all of a sudden he's kind of turned on him. It's like, yeah, he's full of crap. I'm sick of hearing it. Blah blah blah. And it's like the idea is that it's not exactly out of character, so to speak, but it's the idea that this is how much it hurt. Oh, you know what? I'm looking at this. I'm gonna try something. Oh, I was hoping this would. I think what I'd like to do is a wide shot with the two of them and put the text over here, but I want it more of this angle, but they're too far apart. So let's go back and put the camera on him. I think what I'm going to do is go with the wide shot anyway. Maybe I can put the text down here. I can stand to zoom out, and I'm going to have to take her out of the scene. Just because I'd rather have a clear shot than an inaccurate one. Zoom out a little bit more. The idea is I don't want to. It's sort of in this shot. I don't want to end up in the same kind of boat where I put Jackson on this side and then bury him behind the word bubble anyway. So I'm trying to get as much space as I can. I'm going to try this one. We'll call this Alt because I don't want to delete the other picture. So if we take this, bring it over here maybe. Okay, this could work. So it's sort of like his different attitude. He sort of more falls in line with sort of how he's been throughout the book when it comes to David. That like David's so disappointed in him that it's hurting him. And it's sort of that pain is driving him across. Um, but I think one of the reasons, kind of stepping away from that for a moment, one of the reasons I kind of wanted to do the previous page, and I can get away with doing this one, is I kind of wanted to talk about these flashback pages. So this has been one where, like, I know I've talked before about, you know, about kind of outfit changes, forgetting to change outfits sometimes and getting away with it. You can kind of like hand wave it away. Like, oh, they're wearing the same shirt 2 days in a row, or technically in story, it's been 3 days since we last saw them, so they could, in theory, that sort of like you make the excuses in your head as about the when you forget to change an outfit from day to day. Like earlier in the story, Jackson went 3 or 4 days without changing his shirt. But this has been one of those cases where I absolutely have to make sure that I match the outfits in the flashback scenes with what they were wearing on the particular day. Because, I mean, if I was smart and I felt like wasting all the computer memory like that, um, what was going on? Hold on. Oh, shoot. Okay, I gotta go back. I gotta see if I can go back. I thought this was lined up with the. There we go. So, I mean, there's been one or two scenes where the character didn't appear in that particular day. So, like in the very first flashback scenes where she's confronting Jackson, Liz wasn't actually on the page during that day, so I could get away with putting her in whatever. But it's like here, the scene follows their jaunt out to the burger joint. So, I've got to be careful about making sure that even all three of them were wearing the same thing. Even Liz, because we saw her in the kitchen a couple of times when in the dinner scene. In her shrimp. And it's, but yeah, I know I kind of got lost in thought. But if it's like if I was smart and I had and I felt like wasting the computer memory, I would save like each change in the setting on a different file. So whereas like now I call it like David's house, I think is the generic file name. I would, in theory, maybe save it as, I don't know, David's house 1, David's house 2, 3, so on. So that, like, if I ever had to come back into a particular scene, I wouldn't have to make so many changes to get everything to match up. But these file sizes are enormous, and I would quickly fill up an external hard drive if I kind of was that meticulous with saving everything. Let's take Liz out, unparent Liz. I think this might be the opposite, where I take the boys out, get a clear shot on Liz. Yeah. Delete keys. Currently used. I think. Oh, I don't know why sometimes I worry about changing the bones that appear off screen. But it's like sometimes, like in the case here, even though you're not going to see the direction of the hand for some reason, it just, at least to me, it comes across on the forearm and shoulder. So it's kind of like in my head, it's the off screen stuff ends up affecting the on screen. But anyway, no. I know you're going there. I'm trying to simplify this a little. I know you're under a lot of stress right now. Oh, forget you said that. Maybe your dad isn't the kind of guy who takes it seriously. think. E. I don't think. I'll look it up later. It's like things it's one of those things I should know it, but it like doesn't look right either way, so your head can't can't recall it. Um, it, he's kind of complaining about his judgment. Oh, I do not like this speech at all. Mm, he said that. Um, let's see. This is like one of those things where I know the gist of what she wants to say, but it's like the specifics I'm struggling with. I know you're just so forget you said that. Forget you. Sometimes it takes facing death to realize what people really mean to you. It doesn't change the fact that his feelings now. Oops. You only heard about your grade for the same. Because he wants you to succeed. And hopefully this fits in the box. Okay, it will. Okay, so I think that too is why I kind of deleted the other video, because it goes silent while thinking about what the heck, just how the heck to word sort of these long speeches. It's sort of like, I think another reason I wanted to record is all of a sudden, like, my mind is starting to freak out on a couple of things here. So, like, I'm working at the must have scenes, and sort of while these are the must haves, some of the wants are necessary as well. It's just they're kind of interchangeable. What just happened? Uh, okay, somehow I ended up in the wrong. So let's control C that. So it's kind of like some of those wants, some of those expendable scenes are sort of necessary to bridge these scenes. It's just the question is, it's the question is which of those scenes kind of can I end up using versus which can go away. But oh, you are freaking kidding me. Okay. So I'm going to cut this and start over on this panel. So the idea is, while I'm doing these out of order, the expectation is that these must have scenes won't cover 24 pages. And I'll have maybe 6 to 8 pages for those want scenes that have to kind of bridge these different sequences. But I'm already, like I said, this is the 9th page. uh, I've already done, and I feel like um, I feel like there's so much left that needs to be done that I'm going to end up finishing these must-have scenes and not have enough space for the secondary scenes. I know it might not make sense the way I'm describing it, and again, it's kind of all in my head. Right now. But, it's one of those things, you get it in your head and you start kind of quietly panicking. Um, I mean, if that happens, In theory, I could just take this to a part 8. But I sort of end up in the other fear that sort of the extra part becomes watered down, and that extra part would probably be part 7, and all this stuff that I'm filming here would probably go into part 8. Oh, and speaking of things that I wanted to do, I don't want to take this sequence to a third page. And one of the things I want to do is sort of talk about the idea of him paying rent. So we're gonna just move this along. Let's see. Now let's go on to currently used. I'm gonna do another wide panel. Doing a lot of these lately. Let's see if it becomes something great. I can't let you. You think about that, but in the you still have to face management. Eh. So the idea behind this, and I'm not sure I'm not sure if I should be spoiling this because it's a long-term play. Let's see, maybe. So before I get into the spoilers, the idea is that this quote unquote rent is going to be low. You know, since you seem to think you're not going to college next year, you will start paying rent in this room. Maybe maybe $300 a month will incentivize you to think about a career instead of rotting away in here. So it's the idea so I want to get back. So you mentioned the idea of paying rent. The idea is not exactly that he's becoming a tenant, but rather it's the idea is it's sort of a token amount. It's sort of a token amount to make him think about it, to make him think about the situation. Enough that it's going to hurt but not ruin him, but it's enough that it kind of keeps him thinking about how he's going to support himself. And I suppose long term story wise, if you don't want it spoiled, then go ahead and tune out for a half a minute to a minute here. But it's probably going to be just a minor. Oh shoot! It's not really like a huge, probably not going to be a huge deal, but the idea that I'm thinking about. No, I gotta control C that. Is that eventually down the road, um, which again, it'll probably be 2 years worth of stories away. The idea being that, like, all that time between now and whenever, we're going to eventually find out that she's been saving this rent money, setting it aside in a special account for him. And when he's ready to get his own place, it's the idea is that she saved this for the down payment on the house. Even though it's not a lot of money, it's something. Or I should say, even though at that point in time it won't be a lot of money, it still won't be a lot of money, but it's something. Let's put this picture in. Um, and this is a little long. I'm trying to think how to cut this down, how to trim this. Um, I think I can get rid of this opening line. Cut it down to that. As he wants to see it become something great. In the meantime, since you think you're not going to college next year, you will start paying rent in this room. Maybe $300 a month will incentivize you to think about a career instead of running away in here. Yeah, that kind of works a little better. Now let's see if I can condense this down. Okay. Okay, so now I'll trim this box. Kind of the problem is I want a little more room for Jackson. I don't expect her to say quite as much, but I don't want the text to be cramped either. I think this is going to come up one. So I think another reason that I'm like starting to panic inside my head, and this is actually not new to this project. I'd say it probably happens with every project, but there's this glaring alarm bell going off in my head that this isn't going to work. That sort of this structure is just going to is going to end up being a disaster. But like I said, I tend to think that way with every project because you kind of read through a page in like 10 seconds, but it takes like anywhere from 1 to 3 hours to create. So it feels like so it's like from my point of view when I'm working on it, it always feels like the story is slow and dragging because the work is slow and dragging by comparison. So it's I start to think, as the pages go on, I start to think the same way that like, God, this story is horrible. It's so slow. It's dead. And then like I get a chance later on, I'll read everything I've got so far, and like that's when you kind of like, oh my God, this thing moves. This is a lot better than I realized. It's not the disaster, but I'm like right now that's where I am in my head. Um, Of course, the thing, like, I have her laying out this punishment, and you, the reader, might not pick up on it. But really, before he was just grounded until David was back to normal, which would be about a half a week after, which is about a half a week after their exams are over. So to extend the grounding for the rest of the school year, he's probably only looking at another week of school, maybe two. While they sort of wrap everything up and wait for their grades, tie up the housekeeping, so to speak, that sort of stuff. So it's like, it's sort of like her charging him a whopping $300 rent. It's like extending his grounding sounds horrible, but it's really not. So let's save. So I think at this point, I've got to take another look back through the story and see if there's any other sort of instances I want to sort of fictionally flash back to. Um, if not, then I think the next page I'll go back into the bedroom. See, I'm kind of torn on that. If I want to take the next page to go back in the bedroom and show Liz blowing off his David's questioning of how she knows all this. Dad only wants to say those things to clear his conscience before he goes, not because he really believes any of it. He'll go right back to judging our lives when he finds out this was all a prank. Yeah, I know you're under a lot of stress right now, so I'll forget you said that. Sometimes it takes facing death to realize what people really mean to you, to realize you've been an ass and said all the wrong things, or didn't say the things you should have. So what if your dad goes back, okay, goes back to being an ass? It doesn't change the fact that his feelings now are true. It doesn't change the fact that he loves you, and he's only hard on you about your grades, your grade. So we're talking history. For the same reasons I am. I should change that to plural. I was trying to focus specifically on the history grade, but he wants you to succeed. He wants to see you become something great. In the meantime, since you seem to think you're not going to college next year, you will start paying rent in this room. Maybe $300 a month will incentivize you to think about a career instead of rotting away in here. Jackson, you consider yourself grounded for the rest of the school year. I know you meant well, but rules are rules. Okay, so we got to go back and correct this. Um, it's like I said, I'm not sure if I want to do any other scenes, but I could. It's sort of in theory, there it is. And I want it to change. Hopefully, this doesn't screw up the. Okay, cool. In theory, I wanted to do another scene where she spills the secret to Kyle and Gwen before they go. No, before they go over to visit. No, before they come over to visit. But I might have already passed that point in the timeline. And it's not really important. Like I don't. I, like I think you get at this point you get the idea that she's been letting everybody in on the secret to keep them from ruining it. So I don't think you really need another moment where she's basically doing the same thing as she's been doing and confesses to blah blah blah. But I'm rambling here, and I'm going to cut out and take a look at the next page, see what I'm going to do, and I will see you next time.